Hi, I'm Andy Silber, and welcome to Decarbonize, my channel for all things climate related. My last video addressed the question, are EVs the clean tech panacea? And in the context of that video, EVs are electric cars like a Tesla Model 3. And the short answer was no. They don't reduce congestion, the vast amounts of land taken up by cars, lives lost in traffic fatalities, or the cost of transportation. They only reduce pollution. So in this video, I want to talk about my nominee for climate transportation hero, and that is the electric or e-bike.
I don't believe in panaceas or silver bullets. Rather, I believe in silver buckshot. A large number of technologies and practices that combined get us to a future we can proudly leave to our children. Or if not proudly, at least not thinking that future generations will curse our names as they huddle in caves in their dystopian Mad Max futurescape. So I said to myself, what's closer to a panacea than electric cars? This video will be about why I think e-bikes improve many of the problems of a modern city, not just climate change, and how e-bikes are making a difference already, and what we should do to improve the landscape for all bicyclists. This is a topic of which I'm personally enthusiastic. I bought an e-bike in 2019, right before the pandemic, and I just can't imagine being without one. If I moved into a van down by the river, I'd have a foldable e-bike under the bed and solar panels to charge it. What I won't talk about is which e-bike is right for you. There are lots of videos on that. And to those who think that regular bikes are better than e-bikes, I say for you and many people, that's correct. If you're enjoying your bike and it's working for you, just keep using it. But a bike is a tool, not a moral test. If the tool isn't working for you, it's okay to look for a better one. The role of e-bikes is getting people like me, a 60-year-old who has never been athletic and feels ridiculous in spandex, on a bike and out of a car. I live on top of a hill in a hilly, rainy city, and if I had to bike up those hills carrying groceries, I'd probably just drive. But with my e-bike, the hill disappears and the groceries are weightless. I don't think twice about biking 10 miles in each direction to meet with friends, going over multiple hills, in the rain and in the dark. But if I just had a standard bike, I'd probably drive. The point of an e-bike is as a car replacement, not a bike replacement. For trips between 1 and 5 miles, an e-bike can be faster than a car, you get some exercise, it's cheaper, and you don't contribute to congestion or pollution. I have 2 saddlebags on my bike, so I do most of my shopping that way. These next few charts are from a study by BloombergNEF, and the results are quite surprising. In the context of this study, EVs refer to all battery-powered vehicles, including cars, trucks, buses, and bikes. Electric cars get all the love, but worldwide they represent just 8% of electric vehicles on the road, while bikes and trikes represent 91%. Over half of the EVs of all varieties are in China, followed by Europe and then the US, with the rest of the world taking up a pretty small slice. But this is the chart that inspired me to create this video. 66% of the oil that's not being burned due to switching to EVs comes from bikes and trikes. Even if you look at the numbers per vehicle, a car displaces only 2.3 times as much as a bike or a trike, but they cost about 20 times as much. So the most cost-effective EV to reduce oil consumption and CO2 emission are bikes and trikes. A caveat is that these numbers are dominated by what's happening in China, which might not apply to the US. Just 30 years ago, Beijing was dominated by bikes and trikes. For instance, I took this photo in Beijing when I visited there in 1988. I rented a bike for the duration of my visit and got around the city easily and quickly. The recent memory of a time when everyone got around on bikes might result in a lower barrier to taking up biking again compared to the US, where bikes have been seen as the mode of transportation of choice for those too young to have a driver's license. That taking a car off the road and replacing it with a bike helps with congestion and parking and reduces carbon pollution is obvious. But cycling also improves mental health. A survey by Cycleplan showed that 75% of people surveyed noticed a boost in their mental health after cycling. I certainly find it improves my mental health. During the pandemic lockdown, when I got antsy, my wife would say, "Go take a bike ride." And I would always feel better on my return. I grew up in a car-oriented suburb, and all the kids rode bikes and none of the adults did. I now live in a dense urban neighborhood of Seattle where there are few bicyclists and they're mainly adults. Why is that? Why doesn't everyone cycle? In a meta-analysis, link in the description, safety was shown to be the top reason that adults aren't biking. And imagine having your kid bike if you don't feel safe. I'm not comfortable with my 18-year-old son biking in this neighborhood, much less so if he was 8. An estimate of the relative risks per mile of different modes of transportation can be seen here. We see that motorcycles are the highest risk, cars the lowest, and biking and walking are similar and in the middle. This isn't a perfect comparison since cars travel lots of miles on relatively safe freeways. And the road system is optimized for cars, not bikes or pedestrians. So it would be shocking if cars weren't the safest. In 2021, 966 of the 1,230 bike fatalities in the US, or 79%, involved a car. So more cars, more deaths. Reducing car traffic is not the only thing that can be done to reduce the number and seriousness of traffic crashes, but it's one. Yet feeling safe is one of the main reasons that people drive in cities. And I get it. I go whizzing around Seattle wearing a high-vis jacket, a helmet, a bike with good tires and lights, and still I know it's the riskiest thing I do. So we have a vicious cycle. People drive because they don't feel safe biking, so other people feel less safe biking. So what can be done to make the roads safer for everyone, including bicyclists? For at least the last 70 years, city planners have focused on moving cars and trucks as their top priority, transit second, pedestrians third, and bikers seen as a distant fourth. If you look at how real estate is allocated, it's obvious what the priorities are. Lots of land for driving cars, plenty of land for parking cars, some bus-only lanes, sidewalks are pretty common, and an occasional bike lane. I do feel like things have gotten better in the last 10 years, and now biking is treated as a not distant fourth. Can you imagine if there was a road where a business could open a large door quickly without any warning that blocked the street? And it was a strong door that if you ran into it, it would do serious damage to the car and driver, possibly fatal. That would never be allowed, but bicyclists need to contend with this every day as we pedal down a bike lane next to parked cars. Sometimes, when I look for a route to a new place on Google Maps, they say, "Bikes are not allowed in this area. You may need to walk your bike." Can you imagine asking Google Maps for directions and they said you needed to get out and push your car? And whenever some of the land dedicated to driving and parking cars is reallocated to walking or biking, there's a hue and cry and talk of a war on driving. It's just another version of when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. I started off talking about e-bikes, and now I'm talking about the built environment. When you change your paradigms, you need to change your infrastructure. Electric cars need charging stations, pedestrians need sidewalks, and bicyclists need a safe place to ride. Even spaceships need a place to launch and land. So we need to prioritize bike and pedestrian safety. This is starting to happen, but the built environment changes slowly. Part of the problem is that people don't bike because it isn't safe, which is used to justify not building bike lanes. But if we build it, they will come. The Westlake protected bike lane in Seattle is a good example of what a bike lane should look like. It's away from traffic and there's no risk of a car door suddenly opening. There is a lot of pedestrian traffic in the area, but not too much. The connection to the Fremont Bridge on the north side isn't great, but on the south end, it has a good connection to lanes going into downtown Seattle. Bike ridership on Westlake doubled after the protected lane opened. Like I said, if you build it, they will come. What we don't need is a bunch of paint that says bikes are allowed here, but don't expect to feel safe. One interesting thing that Seattle has done is that there are neighborhood greenways, residential streets with little auto traffic where there are stop signs for the side streets crossing the greenway, speed bumps, and other changes to the built environment that make them pleasant streets to bike along. I can attest that when these are available, they're wonderful. Rechanalization, or a road diet, is another way of making biking safer. Converting a road from 2 car lanes in each direction to 1 car lane and 1 bike lane in each direction and a dedicated lane down the middle improves safety, and the car traffic moves more reliably since you don't get stuck behind someone turning left. But there's often a pushback from people who think that status quo serves them best, so rechannelization happens slowly, if at all. In most cities and states, if a car is allowed somewhere, so is a bike. So if there isn't a bike lane, take the lane and own it. I don't mean you should be a jerk, but you have just as much right to be there, and they can pass you just like they would a slow driver. If they don't like it, ask them to call the local government about building more proper bike lanes. Also, check your local lanes so you know exactly where you're allowed. So in conclusion, e-bikes are great, but they are not a panacea. If the built environment doesn't improve, then they may sit unused. But they're both a lot of fun and a very practical way to get around. If you've learned something, please like and subscribe and share with your local planning and transportation departments, and demand roads that work for everyone, not just cars.